There was a grand plan in the 1930s to reconstruct Berlin as the city of Germania. This model shows clearly the north-south axis, with the Great Hall at the top, placed just north of the Reichstag. The section at the bottom is in the vicinity of Tempelhof Airport. Note also the arch in the foreground. Just south of the Great Hall there was also a west-east axis, which was completed in a fashion. "7 kilometers of the east-west axis was officially declared open, from the centre of the city and the Brandenburg Gate to the present-day Theodor-Heuss-Platz, which at the time was known as Adolf-Hitler-Platz. This is circled. The axis was really a widening of a pre-existing route. This plan extends further westwards to show the Olympic Stadium and its surroundings, which was also a project of the 1930s. This widening can be shown at the Charlottenburger Tor. This is before, and this is after. This view also shows the Charlottenburger Tor with a lamp standard designed by Albert Speer, the main architect of Germania, and whose design is still present along this road. Obviously, this new wide road was ideal for military displays. During the latter stages of the war, when the German forces had lost control of their airports, the road was also used as a landing strip. Perhaps inappropriately, it has been used for military displays after the last war, but I believe such displays also took place before the 1930s, so maybe it's not too bad. Its form has been proved to be used for various other activities, such as the mass start of the Berlin Marathon, as shown here. Those in the know will realise that this is an old picture showing the runners going eastwards to the Brandenburger Tor. Nowadays the runners go westwards and pass through the Brandenburger Tor at the end, just before the 42 kilometre mark. This section of the axis immediately westwards from the Brandenburger Tor is known as the Straße der 17. Juni, or the Street of the 17th of June. The Siegersäule was moved to a main focus of the east-west axis. Here it is shown in its original position in front of the Reichstag. South of the Siegersäule ran the Siegersallee, as shown here. This path was flanked by statues of the Hohenzollern monarchs and busts of prominent persons. This is a painting, but it does show the Siegersäule at the northern end of the Siegersallee. The Siegersallee was relocated during the 1930s also to run southwest from the new location of the Siegersäule. And this is the Siegersäule in its present position, slightly higher than before and very prominent along the axis for several kilometres. This column originally celebrated the wars staged on the way to German unification. Wars against Denmark, Österreich, or Austria if you prefer, and France. Note the lamp standard of the form I have just mentioned. This is a still from the film Berliner Ballade of 1948. It shows Gert Fröbe, who later played Goldfinger in the James Bond film, walking along the ruins of the Siegersallee after the war. The Siegersäule can be seen in the background. The remnants of the statues on the Siegersallee can be viewed nowadays in Spandau Citadel. Close to the Charlottenburger Tor is this building, which is the only one remaining of those built during the Nazi period. It was built for the local authorities, but is now known as the Ernst Reuter House and houses the Bundesamt für Bauwesen und Raumordnung, i.e. the Ministry of Building. Returning to the north-south axis, this is a plan of the Great Hall at its northern point. As you can see, the River Spree, or the Spreebogen to be more precise, was to be displaced slightly northwards. The Reichstag is to the bottom right. The axis was also to be laid along the old path of the Siegesallee. The point where the old route of the Siegesallee crossed the east-west axis is now occupied by a Soviet war memorial. This is the view of the Soviet memorial from the Strasse des 17. Juni. This memorial was built very early on and came to be contained within West Berlin. This is another view from the film Berliner Ballade of 1948, and you can see the memorial is already in existence, with the Reichstag in the background. This edifice is the Schwerbelastungskörper and was built to test whether the ground in Berlin would withstand the weight of the buildings they were planning to build. It is still here and open to public viewing in the General Papestrasse in Tempelhof, not far from the intended arch that I pointed out in the model of Germania. A dark side is that it was constructed with the help of French prisoners of war. Results were only actually analysed after the war and would not have been encouraging to the planners. In order to carry out their plans, they required this structure to sink less than 6 centimetres within a particular time period, whereas actually it sank by 19 centimetres. Hitler had a new chancellery built along the Vossstrasse, this street being designated by number 25 on this plan. The road on the left is today's Ebertstrasse, and the road on the right is Wilhelmstrasse, a road synonymous with government buildings. Number 1 is the Marble Gallery, intended to compete with Versailles. Number 15 is the Old Chancellery, and number 10 is the entrance to Hitler's bunker, the bunker itself being shown in red. Today, Hannah Arendt runs horizontally along the top. And this is a view of the Chancellery along Vossstrasse, as seen from what is today Ebertstrasse. And this is the Marble Gallery. This building was constructed as the Air Ministry building in 1935 to cater for Deutschland's new Air Force. Today it is Detlef Rohweder House, housing the Finance Ministry. But it also featured at the centre of the revolt in June 1953, when it was known as the House of Ministries. It lies on the Wilhelmstrasse, south of Leipziger Strasse. The Olympic Stadium was built for the 1936 Olympics, and other venues were also constructed in the vicinity for the event. It was actually built on the site of a stadium which had been constructed for the 1916 Olympics, which was called off for obvious reasons. This former stadium, the Deutsches Stadion, was completed in 1913, and although it was not used for the Olympics, it was subsequently used for important football and athletic events. It had been sunk into the centre of the Grunewald horse racing track, and it was originally planned to upgrade this stadium for the 1936 Games. The new regime from 1933 eventually decided to build new facilities on a much grander scale, which involved doing away with the racetrack completely. Right, well, thank you if you've stayed with me for this brief look at the remnants of 1930s Berlin. If I could just do a bit of self-publicity and point that this is my website, www.bd99.co.uk, and from there you could possibly order, if you wanted to, my book on the subject, which is called Berlin, an A to Z Compilation. Thanks very much.